Welcome. I'm Meg Sheridan. Thanks so much for joining me for this embodiment exercise today. I am figuratively and literally closing the door on the other parts of my day and stepping into this moment. And I invite you to arrive here, whatever that looks like for you. I expect this to be about 45 minutes. And of course, you're free to eat or move around or take notes or not, do whatever works for you. You'll have access to the replay if you want to come back and do the practice again. I will start with acknowledging and paying my respects to the Gadigal people, and I'm coming to you today from Gadigal land, and I am grateful for their custodianship of the land where I am today. The aim today is to make a clear decision about closing out an offer product in your business using what I like to call meaningful movement. So we're going to use some simple movements of the body, just in a chair to start, and standing is also an option. And we're going to use these little motions to tune in to our deep desire regarding this offer. So I'd like to give a little bit of background to start about what embodiment is. And the word is very popular and prominent right now, but the idea is quite ancient, and it's in modern times that we've gotten quite disembodied. Uh, we tend to think of the body and the mind as being separate things, our physical side and our mental side. And the important stuff is all happening in the brain, and the body is a bunch of inconvenient stuff that kind of keeps that brain going. The new model is really understanding how thoroughly we are all one being. The brain is part of the body, and it may be the home of thoughts and feelings, but those processes are involve the entire body. It can be a big shift in your thinking, but I invite you to remember some examples like how much it can affect your mood when you eat or when you skip eating. You might recall having a heartbreak that felt a physical pain in your heart. You might be able to recall a time that you were learning about a betrayal and you could feel your stomach drop. This is not actually those things are not metaphorical because the brainstem has extensive connection to the limbic system. And in the cerebellum, this is a part of the brain that's usually thought of mostly about coordination and balance, which is an important part of its function, but it also has physical connections directly into the emotional centers of the brain. And some of these structures are just now being discovered, even though they're something that can be physically seen and touched in a cadaver brain. We're still learning. So when we talk about a yoga class helping you with your balance, that does mean your physical balance, and that also might affect your emotional balance. So this mind and body connection that I spoke about is what I am really passionate about. And what I've learned is that so much of what we call intelligence is deeply connected with intuition and emotion and things that are in your body. So brain and body are one. And so let's connect them. In this class, we're talking about closing an offer. And you may have seen in the materials that I referred to this as an autumn topic. So it's beginning of autumn here in Australia. And also I have a cycle of the year where each month there's a different focus essentially, and that is the combination of my mojo triad of power, presence, and pleasure combined with not the literal season, but the energy of each season. So the earth has spring, summer, autumn, and winter, but also each project that we're working on has that, and each month has that, and possibly each day or an email. This workshop has that cycle of spring, summer, autumn, and then winter is when we're not in the workshop. So when I use this metaphor, I'm talking about concepts like closing, ending, letting go, and one of the ways that this might apply in your business is to have offers that you feel aren't working anymore and you decide to close them out. Or maybe you feel it's working so well you need to change something, upgrade it, for whatever reason. Could be time pressures, maybe you're doing a price rise. So, for any of these reasons, you might have a time when you're thinking, maybe I should take this one off of the plate. And it's a common place where people get stuck in, like, maybe I should, maybe I shouldn't, maybe I should, maybe I shouldn't, not sure. And the cost of that is really high because we only have so much energy for making decisions. We have millions of decisions to make. And so this is one where we just can get stuck. It's important to get out of that stuck cycle so that you can go on to the next decision you have to make. Um, so at this point, you might think, okay, so you're telling me that my power lies in my ability to make a choice. And so I just need to choose better. Okay, got it. I understand. I'm done. Um, you haven't quite got there yet because that's only the mental part of it. And the point of this exercise is bringing our somatic system into the picture. So the parts we're going to be working with today are like the core of the body and the spine. And the way we're going to be working with that is simply shifting weight. I'm going to scoot my chair back a bit and make sure that you can see me. Yep. Right. I won't be able to see my notes anymore, so I might have to bop back and forth. Okay. So the first thing you might notice is that I didn't go all the way back in my chair like this. The reason I didn't do that, even though my chair has the back and arms that I can lean on, in this exercise, I'm not going to use the back or the arms because I want my whole spine to be free to move. And it's a little bit more comfortable for me to scoot forward on the chair and kind of not perched right on the edge, but I am sitting in a place that's solid, but also a place that is encouraging my spine to be upright. I am perched on the edge of the chair or on a tall part of the chair. I'm going to let my legs support me in just a loose, gentle way. It can be however you like. You do want your feet on the floor. Your feet are solid on the floor. And from that solid base, your legs coming up to your pelvis is still. So you can do a little bit of movement with your pelvis just to feel that contrast. And then let your pelvis be still. And let your whole head and spine curve down just a tiny bit. And then lift back up. And now, instead of leading from the top of your head, lean forward with leading with your chin. And let that pull your whole body forward just a bit. And then coming back to kind of a neutral. The next time, leading from your chest, the center of your chest going straight forward. And back to the neutral position again. Maybe there's a place to lead from even lower than that, in your solar plexus or in your belly. Forward, and then back to the middle. All right, all those motions were forward. And now we're going to experiment with going back from that center spot. So from here, just letting my hips rock back a tiny bit. And then back to the middle. And then letting my lower back be included. And next, letting the motion come all the way up my rib cage into the shoulder blades part of my back. Now thinking about my chest going straight back. And if you feel that you're out of balance doing that, you can either not go as far, or you can hold on with one or both hands just at the seat, and that will give you some more stability. Can also lead towards the back from the back of your head. And you can also point the top of your head back. All right, so that was 4 or 5 different ways of going back and forth. And you might have felt that one was more powerful than another. So I'm going to use the example of the chest in both directions, but if you think I'd really prefer to have it my head, lead yourself with your head. So let's get back in that center position. Welcome. We're doing some movement forward and back. So I'm sitting on the front of my chair and letting the upper part of my body be free from, even though I have a back and arms, I'm not using that. I'm just letting my upper body be free. My legs supporting me with my feet on the floor. Finding a spot that feels stable. And moving forward with the chest just a little bit, just enough to feel your spine moving forward and the weight of your body moving forward. And then coming back to the middle again. And take a record of what you noticed. For me, I noticed the edge of the chair. And I also noticed my shirt kind of changed a little bit as I move forward. So keeping your senses tuned in to everything that's happening in your body as you move. Let's try the opposite direction. So I'm going to move the center of my rib cage just back far enough that it feels a little bit unsteady, and forward again. So now to combine that with the concept of which projects you should continue with and which ones it's ready to let go. The movement forward is about something that really appeals to you, something that is fun or pleasing, or something you're proud of, something that you really enjoy working on. It draws you literally, and something that you just think, oh, every time that comes up on my calendar, I want to sink back and away. Those are the things we're trying to find to get out of. I'll ask you to choose a certain offer or a certain example in your mind now and think, okay, so I have those 3 different programs I do one on one with people, and one of them just makes me feel like, here I am. I can't wait to book this. I can't wait for the time to come up. And that energy carries through every time I'm talking about the offer in a marketing post, in an email to my newsletter, and in a sales conversation. Here I am. I can't wait to offer this to you. And then come into a comfortable position. And I want to remind you that one of the contradictions that we're playing with in this work all the time is, on the one hand, these motions, changing the position of my spine, has physical connections into other parts of my brain that can prepare me for action or for non-action. And so that's a rule as much as anything is in anatomy. And it's common in many people, and it's a well understood reflex. At the same time, it's also true that you can do emotion without having that feeling, or with having the opposite feeling, or with having no feeling at all. So the challenge is to not just do the physical motion and the thought process, but to let yourself feel the feeling. So if you're like me, that's not necessarily your favorite idea. So that's why we work with just a tiny bit at a time. So if I'm thinking about, am I going to keep offering walking meditation in 2025? This is a question I asked myself at the end of the year last year. What's going to happen with that? And the answer is, walking meditation that I have in the park, and it's been running for long enough now that I have a really good routine with it, and I have a lot of good signage, and I always have a really great group of people who get something out of it, and I learn things from them too. So for me, it's just yes, 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 yes. And that leads me to, okay, I'm going to find the dates for that, or I'm going to promote that differently, because I realize, oh, that is actually something I really love doing. And then I might think, okay, how about this offer that I used to have for the personalized support over a 2-week period? Ooh, that was a tricky one. Yeah, immediately thinking about that offer, I have to sit back, because my gut reaction, my internal somatic sense of things, is that was not fun. That was too much. And over too long of a period, didn't allow family situation and all of the things that make life complicated. So that's a decision that I can make in my head. It's much more common. And what I did for a long time about that is just go back and forth endlessly. Like, should I, shouldn't I, should I, shouldn't I? Here are the pros and here are the cons. Here is exactly how much I'm making on this and exactly what it's costing me. And how do I account for all of those things? And I think ultimately it's not really an accounting type question. That is one of the pieces of information that informs the decision. Absolutely. But because in our businesses we work so closely one on one, we really have a relationship with the other person. And so it's important to be able to feel joy when you see that mentioned in your calendar, to have some reserve of motivation and energy for that thing when you aren't feeling 100% like it. Pull that in. So using this body barometer, as my mentor Angela used to call it, the body barometer is going to tell you something at a much deeper level than the pros and cons list. And the reason for that is the decisions that you make at that higher level of the brain also include all of that information, even when you're not aware of it. So becoming aware of the inner feeling of like yuck about something, just a little bit more aware and a little bit more aware, that will allow the thinking part of your brain to go, oh, actually, here's a pattern that I'm seeing. When it comes time for that type of work, my stomach hurts. Or when it comes time for that type of work, suddenly it seems really important to deal with the plumber on that day. Or I do it, but then I have such a headache because I've been grinding my teeth. Um, those are the kind of signals that it becomes really easy to ignore in our bodies because, yeah, when I'm working, I have a headache. That's just how it goes. That can be um, a very advantageous way for our brains to survive is to ignore something like that. Like, oh, I've got a headache again. I'm just going to ignore it. So there's a benefit to that pattern. Excuse me. Let the dog in. Uh, but at the same time, ignoring those bodily signals allows the pattern to continue, and it may be getting worse, or it may just not be a good pattern to continue. So, in the embodiment coaching category, almost everything boils down to this fundamental principle of becoming aware of your body, and not in an esoteric way, but in a very literal, what am I feeling with my five senses in my physical structure right now? It's not necessarily important to jump to when my stomach feels like this, that means XYZ, because that can be a question mark and can be different each time. And um, the first step is just that awareness piece. So becoming knowledgeable about what's possible is part of it. So I might be feeling temperature or pressure or texture, or I might be feeling itching, or I might be feeling tickling. Knowing different types of sensations is helpful. And then doing an inventory. And it may not matter what the sensations are in every part of your body, but this middle corridor is where that wisdom of the body really shines. So your gut feeling and what your heart is feeling and what your head is feeling combine. And that's the wisdom of the body. So I'm just going to check on my notes. One other thing that I wanted to mention when we're talking about finding the bit that feels easier that can have a little bit of trickiness in it because sometimes easy is associated with boring. And so that is not the type of ease that I'm talking about. And it's something each person has to find for themselves. But for me, there's a place where a project can be challenging at the right level for me, and it still is smooth. That's the kind of ease that I mean. So getting myself ready to do a painting challenge, that's a very smooth path. I'm happy to do all the work that's involved in that because the end project draws me so much. And so, all right, now that I have come back over, I can see um, if you'd like to put a question in the chat or um, say hi, please feel free to unmute yourself. And uh, let's see, I think I'll go through a little bit longer example in the same kind of vein and experiment with that idea of feeling the eagerness in the body. So, as I said before, it's important to be in a position where you don't have very much support around you. And so sometimes a stool can be better than a chair. Um, and these little round stools that are just like a perch. And that's perfect for this kind of exercise because it just gives the rest of my body total freedom while also taking my weight. And this brand is secure enough that I know I can move around on them. Not all of them are. Um, right, so I'm going to think of a different type of example to do. Let's go through an example of should I try to attend this conference or not? There's a conference that I'm thinking of, and maybe I've been before and I really had some good experiences there, but now I'm trying to decide, do I want to go back or not? And there's a lot of pros and cons. And in this case, there's also, they added peer pressure or that I like, um, versus perhaps pressure on the other side of maybe my family will say, oh, you're going to be gone for a week. So it has a couple of aspects that we didn't talk about in the last example, just to give it a little bit more richness. So I'm going to continue to use a shorthand of forward being about yes and backward being about no. And I'm just going to let my body move freely for a minute so that I don't feel stiff or self-conscious. And then I'm going to come into that space where I'm kind of stable, but I have options for mobility. And so this time I'm going to use a definitive statement. I'm going to say, I am going to the conference. Going to the conference because I really want to see those people that I met last year. I'm not going to the conference because it's really a lot of time to be away from home. And I'm going to the conference because I think I'll learn a lot of good information. And I'm not going to the conference because the hotel will be really expensive. I have some comparisons, a lot of additional statements that we could add to both sides. They don't need to be in little pairs, but just some things that appeal to me, some things that make me resist. And I'm just going to bring the picture of this conference to my mind. I'm going to close my eyes, but you don't have to. In fact, if I had something that represented it, I would look at that. It'd be a good way to do it too. So the conference is here in my right hand. Conference. Just think about that. And I'm going to say these statements, both positive and negative, while I intentionally move myself backwards and forwards. So as I'm moving away, if I say, I am going to the conference, I am going to the conference. And as I move forward, I'm going to the conference, I'm going to the conference. Okay, I can feel the feeling of resistance when I go back. It doesn't necessarily clarify anything about what my feeling is. So I'll try with the next statement, which is, I'm not going to go because it's a lot of time to be away. And moving back and thinking, I'm not going to go, I'm not going to go. Moving forward, I'm not going to go. I'm staying home, staying home, and staying home, staying home. All right, I think my body is feeling the eagerness and the moving forward. Um, it's weird to do an example that I hadn't practiced before live, so that's an interesting feeling. But I am feeling the difference in mostly my hips, but also in kind of the center of my chest of I am going, I am going, I am going. This is also a good way to feel that contrast because when I say the positive statement and do the negative motion, the reverse motion, I automatically feel less excited about it. I am going, but I don't think I want to go anymore. And then I am going. I'm going, going. I'm going to learn some things. I'm going to see some people. I'm going to spend some time away. I'm going to spend some time away. So in this case, saying that I'm going to spend some time away while still holding that eager feeling in my body from the previous two statements helps me feel less bad about that. I am going to spend some time away. That part's true. And it is balanced out or countered by my eagerness for those other things. All right, so I'm going to now stand up and do a little shake and walk around so that I can reset myself. And I will also show how the exercise can be a little bit different standing. So if you're standing, you want to have one foot in front and one behind. Because when you stand even like this, it's hard to lean forward. You're automatically off balance right away. So Having one foot in the front doesn't have to be a big distance, just a tiny bit in front. That means that you can use your body weight to just move gently forward. So in this case, the whole upper body, it's really pretty much still. I'm not necessarily leaning forward for my hips. Everything is just coming forward all together. And I would say I'm only going forward a few centimeters, but it's enough that this front leg can feel that weight. And this is bent as well. Actually, both of my knees are bent, but the back one's not doing very much at all right now. And the front one is quite bent so that I can go a tiny bit forward. So from this position, I can feel, yes, these are the things that are drawing me. Yes, this direction. And when I bring my weight back, you may want to bring your legs a little bit closer together. You can put your hand on something if this is unsteady at all. Always take care of your balance. So as you lean back, the foot that's in the back will feel that it's taking that weight. And your whole spine and hips are back. All of the extension muscles in your posture are activated now, and that's going to connect to a feeling of, this is a little bit unpleasant, a little bit less appealing. Maybe I need to be worried about something right now. Okay, and then come back to the middle. I'm going to let my feet be even and just feel like no back and forth for a bit. I love a little shake. If you switch your legs, you may feel a difference just based on one thigh being stronger than the other. But in general, it doesn't matter which leg you have forward, and just switching back and forth frequently is a good idea. So I'm going to think, yes, I'm going to teach that workshop. I'm going to hire a hall and teach that workshop. Yes. Now I think just switching my legs to let my hips rest a little bit. And so that intense support program that I'm going to let go of, just thinking of that while I'm on this back foot. Yeah, I'm confirming I really don't want to do that job anymore. I'm going to just throw it away. Get that idea out of my head for now. The advantage of being a business for myself is I can change what I'm offering at any time. I can say, oh, yeah, that one didn't work at all. What can I offer that gives me this feeling of yes? Now, this is almost going into the exercise that we did a few months back that was about building that momentum, that feeling of momentum at the beginning of the day. So if you saw that workshop, you know what I'm talking about. And if you didn't, then we can do a little bit of that right now, letting the feet be uneven still and feeling slowly, slowly, slowly moving forward like you were going to take a step, but you're not there yet. You're just getting ready to take it, almost going to take it. And your back foot starts to lift up very slowly. My toes are still on the ground. Oh, it's so anxious to go forward now. Building, building that tension and excitement. And yes, off I go. This little move is a great thing to do at the beginning of your workday or right before a client session or time like that because it revs you up internally. Or I should say, it may rev you up internally, and try it and let me know. For me, I like this at the beginning of my workday so that I can physically move into my workspace. I'm going to work right here at my desk. All right, so in the cycle of things, this workshop also has an autumn, which we're reaching now. And so um, the main thing that I would like you to take away from today is the idea that this body mind connection is a loop. So your mind does influence your body, and your body also influences your mind. When you see a character in a movie and they're like, then you know they're going to be the dejected one, right? But it's also true that if you're always sitting like this, even if it's because it's for your back or your belly hurts, whatever, that makes it more easy to be dejected because of these connections to your emotional centers and your limbic system. So when my mom's always telling me to sit up straight, there may have been something to that. So finding that comfortable, supported position, straight enough, and aiming for feeling in your body that yes versus no. Um, the full process of this is something I call embodied decision making. And so I have some more info on my website if you would like to find out more about that. And the other things I'm doing are walking meditation in Sydney and business brekkie in Sydney. And next month's Wise Body Workshop is on the 17th. So if there's any more questions, you can always email me after the workshop, and I will post the link to the replay in the meetup group. A question in the chat. Okay, this is a great one. How do you know a no answer is not fear, avoidance, or resistance based? That is so juicy. And part of the challenge of learning to listen to your body is right there. Um, you're going to have some messages that are not the ones you want to listen to, right? And so when I'm talking about the wisdom of your body, that's the process of determining that voice that is wise from the fear. And of course, sometimes the fears are wise. Uh, so a big part of what I do is about accepting the fears and um, allowing them to speak for a moment and also allowing them to be quiet over time. Um, so I would say that a lot of this is about the combination of your body and your brain. Um, and some people would say something like, the body never lies. And I'm not sure that I would agree with that because of exactly what you raised. Sometimes there will be a fear, and that's a very visceral reaction, right? And so if you, let's say you have a public speaking opportunity, and that's something that you would really like to do. And also, it's well known that it's one of the scariest things for most people. So there's going to be a fear reaction there, and there's going to be an excitement reaction there. And the sensation in the body is very similar for those two things. So I think the most important thing for me is slowing down so that I can investigate those feelings properly. Um, when we rush to fix the problem or run away from the problem, um, oftentimes we don't end up ever knowing what the problem really was because we don't get to that lower level. And slowing down is probably the biggest help and also the biggest challenge. Everything in our society is about zoom, zoom, zoom on to the next thing. Um, and so fighting that, even for 5 minutes in a day, and saying, what am I really feeling? What's behind this? And how can I listen to all the different layers of my different types of intelligence and put them together? So it is a challenging process, and it is also possible. Um, yeah, I would say that the wise boys can speak once you have given the fear a chance to speak. But fighting the fear also can make it stronger. Yeah, it's such a huge conversation. I hope that answer made some sense. Excellent. Yeah, we can talk about that some more. I would enjoy that. Um, okay, so I'm going to close us out and um, thank you again for coming and thank you for doing the work of listening to the wisdom of your body. And I look forward to seeing you next time. Take care. All right.